This video is a follow-on from the previous 26 videos dealing with price in the precious metals markets. If you haven't seen those videos, I'd recommend you doing so before watching this one. As I said in the previous video, wondering what the price of gold will be in the future is a bit bogus. For me, it's something of a waste of time. Why? Well, because, as I've said many times in other videos, we're in the midst of a currency crisis. In my opinion, valuing something in terms of existing failing currencies that are in circulation nowadays is not really very useful. Also, we have to be aware there's a difference between price and value. We might think of them as being the same, but they are different and so shouldn't really be confused. Essentially, we ascribe a value to a product or a service in monetary terms. To put this another way, we determine the value of a product or a service, what we believe it's worth in terms of currencies. But currencies at present cannot be relied on. They are no longer a reliable means of ascribing value, and as time moves on, they're going to become even more unreliable. The mechanism for ascribing value by means of currencies is failing and will fail altogether sometime in the not too distant future. Why? Well, because at some point in time we're going to enter the realms of hyperinflation, and when this happens, this mechanism will be rendered utterly useless. To illustrate my point, as a result of the hyperinflationary event in the Weimar Republic circa 1923, the price of gold per ounce went from 100 Deutschmarks to 87 trillion Deutschmarks. A loaf of bread went from half a Deutschmark to 200 billion Deutschmarks. These numbers, as I'm sure you will agree, are totally absurd. To repeat, we're in the midst of a currency crisis. Most people are unaware of this because the decline of currencies has been gradual and because the MSM have lied to the public on a scale which truly beggars belief. But we've entered the final phase, and at some point things will start to get decidedly wonky and wacky. And then, at that stage, the currency crisis will finally be apparent to the general populace, the normies. A significant amount of them might actually then wake up to reality, by which time, of course, it might be too late. So, at some point, the price of gold might be $40,000 per ounce, or it might be $50,000 per ounce, but in some ways, who cares? I don't. I should perhaps qualify this statement somewhat. As a rule of thumb, the more that the price rises, the less I'm inclined to sell my precious metals, exchanging them for fiat, that is. This seems to run contrary to common sense, so permit me to explain. I, for one, would never be stupid enough to exchange any precious metals in my possession, assets of real value, for increasingly worthless bits of paper that have little or no value, or perhaps even worse, digits on a screen in a bank account, especially given the precariousness of the banking system at present. As an aside, I continue to be amazed and somewhat mystified that bullion dealers still accept fiat. They should know better, but that's their choice, so whatever. Nevertheless, I wonder when that trade will end. I should say that I'm in the process of converting any spare fiat I have for precious metals, so I'm converting crap currencies into real money. This should tell you that I put my money where my mouth is, that I'm not some bullshitter. So, I do look at the price if I want to purchase any precious metals, exchange my fiat for assets of real value. Then, obviously, I want to get the cheapest price that I can. But even then, I don't pay much mind to it. I don't obsess about the price because I know that precious metals are hugely undervalued now as compared to what they will be in the future. There's also a cost averaging to consider, but I don't want to get sidetracked by talking about that. As I said in the previous video, I would prefer to speak in terms of purchasing power when it comes to gold revaluation rather than the specific price. People who own gold will see their purchasing power increase dramatically, and conversely, people who don't own gold will see their purchasing power decrease dramatically. When will that time be? I don't know, but my guess is that we're not too far off. How much will purchasing power increase? I don't know that either. All I know is that it will inevitably increase, and people who own precious metals will be in a position to profit from it. For instance, I expect to be able to buy a house in a nice part of the world and retire with my holdings of precious metals. Anyway, to continue. It's worth saying also that I look at the gold price as a way of assessing the state of currencies rather than pricing gold in currency terms. So, I do pay some attention to the price of precious metals, but only in passing, as a gauge to judge where we're at in the process, and any big increase in price will act as an alert to me. When gold and silver jump up a lot in price, that will tell me that our overlords have lost control of the precious metals markets, so no more market manipulation. It will also tell me that the end is nigh for the dollar and all other currencies except maybe the ruble or the new BRICS trading currency which is being developed. For me, any major move up in price will mark the death rattle for all the major world currencies. In summary, if gold gets to $40,000 per ounce, this will mean that gold will be shining and the currencies that are presently being used will be seen to be the crap that they are. It's really as simple as that. So I think in terms of safeguarding any wealth that I have and also taking advantage of the gold revaluation when it happens. In this respect, I'm interested only in purchasing power, what my holdings of precious metals will be able to buy once the collapse has happened. I should say that I'm only telling you how I think and what I do. This is not financial advice, so don't base what you do on what I've said without having done your own research and without having considered things very, very carefully. Don't just take my word for it. Do your own due diligence. Investigate all these matters that I've spoken about and then come to your own conclusions. But I would suggest that you might want to do so soon, as a matter of some urgency, in fact. The upshot of all this is, as far as I'm concerned, there's little point in obsessing about price. I think it's just an academic exercise, some masturbatory material for academics. Or it could be clickbait to put out by certain YouTubers to get you to watch their videos. I myself don't bother about wondering about the price much, if at all. I've got better things to do with my time. But all this is just me expressing my opinions. Everyone is entitled to think whatever they want and do as they please, so feel free to dismiss all this as the ravings of a lunatic. You can even call me a crazy conspiracist, if you want. In the fullness of time, we shall see who was right and who was wrong. I split this topic into a number of videos, so there's another however many to follow, 2 or 3 perhaps. In the next video, I'll talk about hyperinflation because that's where we're headed. Wise up and rise up.